Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia. Hi.
Sam Healy. Welcome back, folks.
So today we're starting a new series called Dice Tower Dive, and this is where we're going to take a look at, well, stuff that's not cult of the new. Means it's usually stuff that's out. It won't always be...
Like at least 3 months old, right?
Correct. Not cult of the new.
Right.
Maybe like at least a
we're
year old,
we're,
right?
we're throwing it way back. You know, like stuff from November.
Oh.
Remember November? Oh.
No, I don't remember.
Those were dark
November.
days.
It was too long ago.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, people, you have to realize that in board gaming, 2-3 years is considered old. There's
is.
also such a huge amount of board gaming overlap. Like many of you watching the show, I would say a good 75% of you have been in board gaming less than a decade.
Sure, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
But there's people who've been around since the very beginning. But so what we want to do is take a look at some of this older stuff and talk about it and show off our expertise or lack thereof.
Okay.
Yep.
So with that being said, today I wanted to talk a little bit about the game Dominion, since I was going through my look back and I reviewed this game 10 years ago. 10 years ago, Sam and I were both in Korea.
2008. Yep.
And Z was in college. No, you weren't.
No.
You were teaching at the time, probably then.
2008?
Weren't your
Yeah.
parents?
I was either
weren't your
teaching
parents,
or-
No,
Here we go.
stop.
Go ahead. China at the time? I was either teaching or acting or something. Yeah, one of those.
Now, did you play Dominion when it came out in 2008?
Yeah.
So you were in
remember-
gaming at that point.
Yes, yeah. And I remember that game and Race for the Galaxy both were the first games that I just turned my nose up at because it was a pile of cards for board game prices. You know, up to that point I was like, if you're buying a card game, it's a card game price. If you buy a board game, you pay board game prices for that. And Race for the Galaxy and this one were both like, it's a card game, right? Why am I paying board game prices for this? So I was, for a while, I was like, forget this. I don't want to, until I finally did try it. But yeah, it was a couple months after it came out.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Race for the Galaxy, because before Dominion came out, Race for the Galaxy was it.
Yeah.
You know, it was a big game that came, and then there was rumblings on the internet. I heard someone say, there's a game that's better than Race for the Galaxy. I played it hundreds of times, and I was like, who's going to play a game hundreds of times?
Huh. I didn't even know that that Race for the Galaxy was first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I played it in that order. I think I played Dominion first and then Race for the
It's
Galaxy.
possible. I played Race for the Galaxy a lot with just Laura and stuff at the beginning, and then I played a lot of the two-player. Then when Dominion came out, the first time I played it was at a convention, was a prototype, something I went through now, but I was like, oh yeah, I'll try this prototype. And when they put it on the table, I was like, this doesn't look like much. It's just a bunch of piles of cards. And then the concept of the deck building, where Sam and me have been deck building for a decade before this, putting collectible card games together.
Sure.
But we never done it in the middle of a game. Dominion, there's arguments that StarCraft did it first, but Dominion is the first game to really bring this out in the forefront. Stats on Dominion are designed by Donald X. Vaccarino for easily his most famous game,
Oh, yeah.
than all his other games put together.
Well, that Temporum is a good one.
Kingdom Builder was probably,
Kingdom
that
Builder
one,
came out soon after.
well, one to spill is yours.
and
so,
he was still sort of the Dominion guy, and that's basically it.
yeah.
He got some acclaim for that, but after that, that was kind of the end of it. Nothing else was anywhere near a match for those two.
Dominion is easily the reason Rio Grande went solvent. They're the main publishers for it. This wasn't their first game that they published on their own. They have been mostly bringing games over from Europe, but it was easily their biggest game they published on their own. And now 24 different publishers have published it. It's one of the notable facts that a lot of people don't know is there's a lot of different artists for Dominion. You can tell that because the artwork is what it is.
Yes.
Ryan Lockett, this was the first toe wedding of his in the industry, where he designed a couple cards for Dominion.
And he illustrated them.
Yeah, he illustrated, I'm sorry, not designed them, illustrated a couple cards for Dominion. I don't remember which ones. And then he went to Essen to get work in the industry, knowing, hey, look, I did some Dominion cards. That was his resume.
Wow.
And that didn't really work out, so he started his own company,
That's
for which
cool.
I'm glad for.
That's a cool origin story there, yeah.
67,000 ratings on Board Game Geek. It's rated pretty highly. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 expansions. And that's not including the fact that in 2016 they came out with a second edition for the game, and for Intrigue, Dominion Intrigue. There's 2 base games.
Right.
So when Dominion came out in 2008, in 2009 they came out with 2 expansions. They were doing 2 a year, 1 big and 1 small. That was their plan. They did. Intrigue was a full-size one.
It was actually a standalone one as
Standalone,
well.
and then I think they stopped that. And then Seaside
did.
was a big expansion. Then Prosperity came out in 2010, and Alchemy a small expansion. And Alchemy is where I think most people stopped playing Dominion.
That's where they that was the first misstep, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know there's a lot of people who love Dominion, but when Alchemy came out, that's when I could tell that it wasn't as popular at that point. In 11, they had 2 expansions. Hinterland's a big one, and Cornucopia. Then in 2012, the Dark Ages, which is almost like the name, hey, we're the Dark Ages of expansions. 2013, Guilds. 2015, they skipped the year, Adventurers. Then in 2016, they had the second edition and Empires. 2017, Nocturne, which I thought was the death knell of the series, and then they just came out with Renaissance, though, in 18. So
Well, there you go. It died and it came back. Rebirth.
it does feel like these names here have kind of
I'll tell you what, those names are unfortunately very forgettable, all of them. They could have just...
I don't recall hearing half of them, to be honest with you.
I just, unfortunately, honestly, the one I remember the most is Alchemy, because I know I was definitely on board through to that point, got Alchemy, and it just felt like the first moment in which they were reaching, truly reaching.
Is that where you stopped? Is Alchemy the last one you played, or did you play a little bit after that?
No, because I think after that is when you get the one with the big money, right?
No, Prosperity. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Alchemy and Prosperity came out the same year.
Yeah, so I played that, and I want to say I owned that. That was a solid expansion. It just felt like Alchemy felt like a side quest as opposed to part of the main story.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And it just did. A lot of people, I know it's universally disliked more than the other ones, for the most part. It was one of the early ones anyway that a lot of people were going, this feels, it's like something else. You have a new currency that only works in this expansion. A lot of the cards only work with plenty of cards from this expansion. Like, you couldn't take one Alchemy card and put it in. Not really. Nobody would buy it.
There's also a couple very hated. There's a couple very hated cards in this expansion too.
Sure. Yeah. So
I'm pretty sure this is where you stopped playing.
Man, I don't remember what expansion was out when I stopped playing. That's crazy talk for both of you.
I know my history.
I don't know. It just stopped having its flair. I don't know.
What did you like about it originally? I mean,
the deck building aspect of it. I mean, that's really the mechanism is what it was, and I mean, we played it so much.
Well, I think part of that isn't
Every
even
single week we
it
would
wasn't
play
his
it
choice.
multiple times.
He would show up and we were like, "Hey, we're playing Dominion, Sam."
I'm like, gee whiz, why did I come?
And that was in our play group at that time. We had, if we were lucky, we had 2 tables.
Yeah. I mean,
So we usually had 1 table and be like, "Hey, we're playing Dominion, Sam. You want in?"
We were at the rec center on base, and it was sometimes the soldiers would come in, and sometimes they wouldn't, and sometimes we only had like enough people for like 1.5 games, and get stuck playing Dominion every stinking week. It was just, oh man, there's so many other good games out there, and we're always playing the same thing. That's what was bugging me about it.
Well, I never actually left Dominion, although I did start Nocturne. I was almost ready to close the door on it. This latest expansion I enjoyed, and in fact, on the cruise we just went on, I think I played Dominion 3 times over that. And the
I don't
retreat.
want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, but I played other games too.
So did I.
And there were some people said, "You want to play Dominion?" And I said, "No."
Well, you clearly have more control than I do. I played Blood Rage 3 times, and they were giving me guff every time I walk by. Every time they walk by, oh look, he's playing Blood Rage again.
Is that how we looked?
Yes, to me.
That's how I did walk by. Yes.
But I like how this resurgence. I guess mostly because I sorted it all out for for our library and everything. I played it at the retreat a couple times. So when Dominion came out, it was a renaissance of design. It was. You can give Donald X. Factorino the credit for that. You can give, or some people say it's the developers, Dale Yu and Stefan. Anyway, some of the developers.
Yeah.
Where they took this game, but it did start a whole genre for sure.
It did.
There wasn't anything immediately. The first one was, as far as I can tell, was Arctic Scavengers, which didn't do that well. It was kind of a little indie game, which then Rio Grande bought.
Yeah, and then they eventually put out expansions for that. They went away for a while. They reboxed it and put it out again. And funny enough, it's actually one of the ones that does feel, in many ways, more different from Dominion than lots of clones that came out afterwards.
Right.
It was one that had a direct confrontation. It was one that, a lot of the concepts were very different, had a very strong thematic setting, which did not deviate from that setting. You did not suddenly get the jungle set, you know what I mean?
That's true. We never did see Arctic Scavengers. Jungle.
Yeah, so, again, the game I think was just all right, but it actually was a very solid second attempt at grasping at this new idea and truly doing something different with it.
I think Arctic Scavengers was one of the first games that you and I played together. And the reason I think I remember it is because I remember dropping one of the cards on the floor, and somehow it got underneath.
That wasn't that game.
It wasn't that game? What was it?
That was Condottiere. The nice, fancy one, the big one.
Okay,
Anyway,
so I'll let them fight about this later.
It got stuck under the
I brought out my nice...
now we're diving into like psychological
my nice
stuff.
Condottiere, whatever that version's called, second edition, I think, with Dominic Earhart artwork and the big cards and the nice big board. This is before FFG put it out.
Yeah.
And we were playing, and Sam dropped a card, and when it fell on the floor, he went to move out of the way to get the card, grabbed his chair, picked it up, and set it right back down on the card in the middle of the card.
By accident.
Obviously.
I already know what his reaction was.
Pissed him off.
I can see
I
how
was
you'd
like,
be.
oh man, this is like irreplaceable. It wasn't, the FFG one was...
You look sorrowful.
The FFG one was easy to get after that, but that one before.
All right, so
Yes.
bringing us back into... Okay, so Dominion definitely had its effect, but Arctic Scavengers wasn't enough to do anything. It was kind of like, a lot of people looked at it as, oh, that's cool, but I'm playing Dominion. Thunderstone came along and said, hey, we're adding theme to Dominion, but because there was a lot of clunkiness in the original Thunderstone, there really was. I mean, they're now in the third edition. It went its own path eventually and got there, but it still didn't kind of take over Dominion. The first one I can think of that really presented something different to Dominion and it started almost like a subgenre of deck building was Ascension. Because Ascension said, we have a bunch of cards here, and these, you don't have different piles of cards. It's, here's the cards, they get wiped. Here's, they're being replaced. And there's a lot of DC Deck Builder, there's a lot of deck building games that have followed that Ascension model. Not to mention Ascension is probably after Dominion, or maybe Marvel Legendary. The Ascension and Marvel Legendary are still having expansions come out now. They're still extremely popular, comparatively.
I don't know if I would call it that particularly... like a particularly revolutionary idea. I mean, Dominion came out, the main concept and mechanism was strong, but everything else that has been an offshoot of that has simply been, let's look at one part of this and do it differently.
No, I'm not arguing that, but I'm saying
you know what I mean? It's like, hey, in this game, after you turn, you discard your hand. And came all the games that said, what if at the end of your turn, you just replenish your hand? Twist on Dominion. It was the same stuff. Oh, you take all the decks and shuffle them. It was...
And then there's Aeon's End where you don't shuffle the deck, you just flip it back over.
Sure,
and
right. I mean, it's like, you take any one part and don't do that thing, do the opposite of that thing.
Sure, but I'm just saying that Ascension had kind of a subgenre, and we saw different games come out and rise and fall. There's still pure deck building style games like Star Realms, and you're attacking the person. But then as the years went by, we started seeing deck building being incorporated into a bigger game. Not always to great effect. Plaid Hat did it with their game about people living under aliens, which is I'm forgetting. We saw
people living under aliens.
Yeah, there were aliens controlled the area, and you were like a little insurrectionist in the blocks. It did not do very well for Plaid Hat games.
Okay, I don't recall that one, but okay.
But
City of Remnants.
City of Remnants. Yes, thank you.
Oh, I never played that one. Okay.
So we're the one from Stronghold Games with the space one.
I know Tyrants of the Underdark did it somewhat.
Right, Tyrants of the Underdark is using a board, And what I'm saying is it's not just, Dominion was just deck building. There was nothing else on the table.
Right.
There was nothing else at all, really. It was basically mechanical, about as mechanical as it got.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, even the theme wasn't.
Right, it was truly just mechanisms, which is what I thought, the reason I thought, and I'm still baffled by the fact that they put out that many expansions.
Oh, really?
Because,
I mean...
Yeah, that's true. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about design space in Dominion. Was never that big. There wasn't that much to do. In fact, lots of people still say the best way to win Dominion is get enough money to buy money and then use money to buy victory points.
Sure.
Bypass the rest of the stuff, which is all burning hoops that you're jumping through, and just walk around it and buy the victory points.
Well, talking to people who played Dominion on the cruise, I met a guy who played Dominion 1,000 times and a guy who played it 10,000 times. A lot of it online. But anyway, they both said that while big money is an extremely strong strategy, that as the sets came out, a lot of the cards in there countered that. It's kind of like Magic the Gathering, right? This is too powerful, so let's think of things. No, when you play stuff online, you can play it a lot.
Yeah, sure.
I got that, but oh my goodness, 10,000 games of Dominion?
Hey, you're just lucky that you haven't figured out a way to play quickly Blood Rage online.
Well, they do have that new app.
Well,
They have a new app?
Well, there's another thing that bugs me about Dominion.
Coming out, right? They got
Kickstarted
Kickstarted.
It took Dominion forever to get a good app. One of the things about deck builders is that they tend to make really good apps for them. The Ascension app is something I play
That's
a lot.
excellent.
Star Realms has an app. There's these different apps. Dominion was like perfect for that. They finally came out with one a couple years ago, and it was riddled with problems.
Well, they had a lot of issues along the way where someone put out one out that wasn't backed by the Dominion. It wasn't actually a licensed product. That got pulled or went away. I don't know what happened. Yeah, they've had sort of a rocky history when it comes to the online or app implementation of the game. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, like I was saying, I just found that the design space wasn't that big, So when he did the whole idea of like, you play a card, leave it on the table for one round, it'll do something again. I'm like, all right, he found a little wiggle room in one elbow there to kind of find a little design space, which is why by the time it got to Alchemy, it was like, I need to come up with something to give me design space. I know, a brand new currency. And it was like, yeah, okay, you've lost it. Kind of, this game is only this big. You can design within that. If you design 12 expansions, you're gonna have to find a bunch of wiggle room.
Yeah, but even if someone takes the idea of Dominion, it wasn't a very big idea to begin with, right? I mean, it's a big idea, but I mean, it's not. If you try to change too much of it, like for example, Scott Pilgrim, CCG had 3 or 4 different currencies, had double-sided cards which changed, had multiple phases in the game, and it was just like, no, this is too much. This is just over the top. And yet I feel like Dominion is falling into that Catan trap where people are like, oh, you like Dominion. This quote-unquote deck builder is so much better, right? Thunderstone?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It's almost chic to say that to some degree, but I think Dominion gets a lot of hate that it shouldn't. It's a solid game that still holds up today. You might not like all the expansions, but if I play straight Dominion, it still is a good game. One of my favorites, really.
It's fine. It's a good game. It's just, as usually is the case, as the first of something, people quickly find ways to improve on that. It's that climbing the mountain, which is this idea of like putting a mechanism out there, which truly does feel like something you haven't done. That was it. But that was nothing past that. It was such a Herculean sort of achievement that no one bothered to think, well, how about we do a theme now that people might like?
What do you mean? No, well, I mean, people are doing that. Look how popular Marvel Legendary is. And it took the idea of, hey, let's also make it cooperative.
No, I'm saying Dominion.
Oh.
Like once they climbed the mountain, it was such a big climb that they stopped.
I'm okay with that, though. It's up to other games to take that. You don't want that game to change. Magic the Gathering hasn't changed that much over the past 30 years.
It probably has, but I always thought that it was probably a better idea for Dominion to become a line of games as opposed to a game with 12 expansions where you lose people along the way. Go the pandemic route. Go the century route.
I would love to see numbers. Well, we never will. I would love to see numbers on the sales of the sets. I mean, I'm pretty sure Dominion is probably close to 1 million copies sold. I feel
I
pretty
would assume
right,
so.
sure,
yeah.
especially when it won one of the Spiel des Jahres awards. I can't imagine that Renaissance has sold more than 20,000 copies.
Sure, right.
But again, I don't know. We're just guessing. But even we can go by when we first went to Origins. Remember Origins right after Dominion came out? It was like Dominion.
Yeah.
And now we go to a convention, and when I saw people playing Dominion on the cruise, I was like, huh, some people are playing Dominion. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
Now that part of that is Cult of the New.
Sure, yeah. Well, part of it is
How is part of it Cult of the New?
Part of it's called new because you don't see people playing older games a lot in general.
Okay.
Is what I
got it,
mean.
Got it. Understand.
part of it is innovation on an older idea, though. I wouldn't call that Cult of the New.
No, I'm saying why I don't see people playing Dominion as much.
I'm saying the effect is, on the one hand, yes, it's old. It's 10 years old.
That's why I said
On the
part
other
of.
hand, it is simply taking something and improving it. People should play the improved one, or consume the improved food, or wear the improved clothing. I mean,
I still say it's in my top 5 deck builders, though. It really is good. I mean, there's a lot of improvements, but I keep going back to Dominion.
that's fine because you're very familiar with it, and maybe you do like it better. That's fine.
Maybe that's part
but
of it.
See,
if you give me Dominion with those very mechanisms and a better theme, that'd be better.
Like,
that's exactly where I'm at.
let's throw out someone mentioned here, Clank.
Dominion,
Which would you rather play?
Clank? By far, because it's got a theme that actually works with the mechanism.
Clank is also a deck building game where it takes a bunch of like very dry mechanical ideas and puts them in a game. That isn't the game. You know what I mean?
Sure. It's like the deck building part is half the game. The other half's running around the board.
Yeah,
pushing
and
your
like,
luck.
ooh, there's a dragon and this and that. I never get those emotions in Dominion. You know, it's like, oh, it's a garbage hand, or,
The witch gives me emotions.
you know, you draw a hand and you go, yeah, I had to get the bad hand eventually. Or, oh, yeah, look, I can buy a gold.
Just about any deck builder that you've mentioned while we've been talking about Dominion,
You
I
like
would
better.
much rather play than Dominion. Because, I mean, I'm seriously.
But
I
you're
mean,
super
there's-
strong on theme.
Yeah, I am. And I think there's a lot of other people out there that are just like that. They want something to kind of grab hold of. They don't, I mean, there's Eurogamers. The Eurogamers just want the mechanisms, and I get that. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's also a lot of other people out there that want more than just mechanisms. I mean, what if you went and bought a pizza and all it was the dough? There was no marinara sauce. There's no cheese. There's no pepperoni.
Crazy
there's
bread.
There's no nothing.
Getting hungry.
Yeah, but what do you do with crazy bread? You do what? You dip it in what? You dip it in the crazy
Theme.
sauce.
I don't think
Come
this is.
on.
I don't
Dip
think this is
it in
actually.
theme.
I don't think it's a good
There
analogy,
is
but
so much. It's a perfect analogy because Dominion is the bread of pizza.
yeah, but I really
Like bread, right?
I do like bread. I mean, I think that's I don't know. Well, before we go any farther, let's take a break here and let's see what some of our contributors
Yep.
have to say about this, and then we'll come back to you guys.
Hello, my name is Jonathan from Board Game Opinions. Now, Dominion is one of those landmark games. I can still remember, in fact, where I was when I played my first game and who I was playing with. You know, like when man first landed on the moon or something, and people always say, oh, I remember where I was when that happened. It was like that with Dominion. It was such an influential game. Although the first time I played it, I really didn't like it. You know, you have your deck and you buy cards from the middle and you start shuffling and cycling them around, and it all just felt very random. I was like, well, I don't know when my cards are going to come out from my deck, and they always seem to come out at the wrong time, and I never seem to do very well. And so we kind of put it to one side. I actually borrowed the game off a friend, but then I got invited to another friend's house a couple of weeks later, and for an evening of games, and one of the games they pulled out was Dominion. So I was like, okay, I'll give it another go. And we played this game, and they'd played the game a few times before, and after the first game, they completely thrashed everyone else. Like, we had effectively 2 new players, plus the experienced player, and me who played it once or twice, and they just beat us so easily. I was like, that's just luck, surely. I can't see what the strategy is here. So I said, oh, well, let's play this again. I want to make sure. So we played it a second time, and I was doing my normal thing, buying a few cards. They seemed to come out randomly, but then his cards seemed to come out just when they wanted them to, or he seemed to build up combos and things. And I was like, what's going on here? And he thrashed us again. I mean, totally whitewashed us. Like, there's something to this. There's something more than I can immediately see. And at this point, I kind of fell in love with the game. And we played it and we played it and played it. Kind of played it in every game group with everyone I could play with. kind of non-gamers and gamers alike, really. And we played it so much, and I just loved it. There's so many interesting strategies to Dominion when you play it more and more. Now, it has waned a little bit over the years, I think. You know, it doesn't really have that much steam, and lots of other games have taken the idea of deck building and done it so well, sort of adding to the basics. But in terms of most influential game, a game that ought to be in the Hall of Fame, you could say, I think Dominion really deserves its place.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris, and I'm going to be talking to you about this dinosaur of a game, Dominion, the oldest game in our collection, and yet still my favorite because there are so many things about this that keep it fresh, as new as any of the designs I find to be out there. Now, despite all the things that I could talk about, all of the exciting chains, and the amount of expansions that there are, I'm going to talk about these. The plain Jane, boring victory point cards, because I think that this is what contributes to the most clever part about Dominion. There is a natural arc in the course of the game where you want to buy bigger money cards and stronger actions, and you want to build up this great engine that's really fun to fire off. And then at the end of the game, there comes a point halfway, 3/4 of the way through, where you need to start focusing on buying big victory points, because despite how much gold or great actions you have, the only thing that will matter when the end game triggers is who has the most of these cards. The problem, though, is that they don't have any actions. They don't have any monetary value. They offer you nothing when you draw them in the course of the play of the game. In economics, you would call this negative utility. It actually slows down, it actually hurts the engine that you're trying to build. And yet at the end of the game, they're the only thing that matters. Because of that, there comes a point in the game where there's a natural shift from getting cards that have this inherent utility, draw more cards, play more actions, buy more cards, to the last half where you're chasing after the victory point cards. Now, I think that this is where a lot of the hidden interaction of the game comes out, because once this province pile is empty, the game is going to end and you immediately score out points. And while the province stack is still pretty full, it maybe doesn't matter so much what you're doing, but as soon as that first person buys one, the whole table has to collectively decide, is this that turning point of the game or not? And as soon as one or two more are purchased at that point, have you already made a shift into that mode, or are you letting it kind of go in the hope that maybe you can buy 3 in one turn and really move towards that game end? I think that the player who can read the table state and read what the other players are going to do is going to have a very good chance of winning the game. It's not something that you have to have a ton of experience with the mechanisms of the game, but more of that feel. Where is that natural arc going to shift? And if a new player can kind of feel that out, I think that they can beat an experienced player fairly often. It's not that there's a lack of strategy or that there's too much luck. It's a mix of that strategy and that feel of when the game is going to end. I think that Dominion does it so well, and because of that, I really laud this simple victory point card mechanism that I have yet to see really done in other deck building games. And because of that, Dominion is still my favorite deck building game of all time. It's my favorite game, so I hope that you maybe give it a shot if you've never played it before, or if it's been a few years since you tried it, pull it back out. It is my favorite game. It is so very much fun. Thanks for letting me share a few of my thoughts about this one. My name is Chris. Thank you so much.
Hello everybody. In this segment, I'm going to be looking at the game of the week and saying, if you like that, you might like this. I'll be looking at theme, mechanism, and a wildcard to give you some other game ideas. Some obvious and some not so obvious. Now this week's game is the classic Dominion, and we'll start with its theme. Now many people will say that it's light on theme, but I've always felt that I was building up and expanding my territories in the game. And for a game that has the same type of theme, I went with Canterbury by Andrew Parks. Now in this game, you are Saxon lords tasked with building the city of Canterbury into a prosperous capital city. On each turn, you're going to be taking one of the 3 actions to supply the city with vital services to buy bigger and better buildings. But you can't buy some of the more prestigious buildings in the city until the populace has the basics to live. and that's Canterbury by Andrew Parks. Now for mechanism, I went with an obvious choice, and that's Thunderstone. And the version that is currently available is Thunderstone Quest by Mike Elliott, Brian Reese, and Mark Wanton. Now Thunderstone was one of the early deck builders, and Quest is the most current iteration of that mechanism. It takes the basic idea of deck building and adds a whole dungeon crawl theme onto it, where you start with basic adventures and equipment and are purchasing or upgrading to better cards. When you think your party is ready, delve into the dungeon to defeat the monsters and hopefully come back with some experience and money to continue to purchase upgrading your cards. Now the new quest system allows you to play through a story and add more items and monsters and equipment as the game progresses, along with some new ideas to deck building genre, including dungeon tiles, side quests, guild cards, and etc. So if you like building, Thunderstone Quest is a definite one to check out. And finally, for the last game, there's always a wildcard spot, and this is for a game that kind of gives me the same feel as the main game. For my wildcard spot this week, I'm going with London by Martin Wallace. Now one of the things I love about Dominion is the engine building aspect of it. You're trying to get the right combo of cards into your hands at the right time to trigger off an impressive sequence. Now London is about rebuilding the city of London after the Great Fire. You're playing cards into sets and then kind of running the sets to gain money and to rebuild the city. But each time you run your engine, you might get poverty, which is something you want to deal with. You might even have to take out a loan to help rebuild. Now this game is definitely more complex than Dominion, but it still gives you that great feel of building an engine and running it to get great rewards. And that's London by Martin Wallace. Now I'd love to hear in the comments about your games you suggest for the theme, mechanism, and wildcard. Until next time, thanks for watching.
All right. Well,
I agree with Chris there about the, I think that's the most interesting thing of Dominion is that timing, the feeling when the shift happens from buying cards or money to buying points. And then every now and then you're playing and you go, I missed it. You know what I mean? You can just tell.
sure.
You're behind the curve. You're just behind the curve. But watching that last segment with Graham, I think I figured out what it is that bothers me the most about what we have now that we call Dominion and has all these expansions and everything. It's not the mechanisms. It's not any one thing. It's the fact that the game feels stuck in time. Stuck in when it came out. Most other, in fact, from his video, there's two. Any game that's been out for a long time, it's had some success, it wants to reach a bigger audience, has made enough of a splash to do so, has been given a second edition, a new look, something new, polishing of corners, that sort of thing. Except Dominion. It had a second edition where they gave the gold cards artwork.
Oh, well, no, I agree with you.
You know what I mean? Like Pandemic had it, London.
Looks like that.
Thunderstone's had like 4, and maybe that's a little much, but that's how it feels. That's the problem. It's this game that came out, and we're still supposed to be excited about this car that came out 10 years ago, and they never issued another model.
Yeah, but it was a good, solid car.
It's also 10 years old, and you can't even hook up an iPhone to it. That's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. It feels stuck in time. Why did they put out 12 editions or 12 expansions? But they never issued a pretty mass market, I'm talking like Pandemic, second edition mass market here, edition of Pandemic.
No, that's Rio Grande's way. I don't disagree with Z on that regard, that the game certainly could look nicer. In fact, anyone who says the game is a beautiful game, I don't want to say they're lying, but they're
Fine,
like,
if you find it beautiful, that's okay. I'm talking about in generalities here.
no, it doesn't look that great. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
But that being said, I don't think the game feels old. Yes, other games have come out, and I've said, ooh, I like Core Worlds better. I've picked various games at certain times, and even now I have to go back and look at my top 100. I don't think Dominion is the highest ranked deck builder for me, but it sure beats for me like 80 other ones.
That's
because
fine.
I'll play them for a while, and then I've found the interesting parts of them. Dominion, mostly because there's 6 gazillion expansions, keeps me coming back. So it's still a 9.5 for me in my book out of 10. That's really high.
You're probably right that it doesn't feel old, but it looks old.
Okay, well, that I agree with. It's not a 9.5 for you, I think.
Oh, no. It's like a 0.5. No, I'm just kidding. It's not a 0.5. I agree with Z. It feels dated. It feels like, I don't like how went to the car analogy, because some of those older cars are really nice cars, even now.
Yeah, but then
Just because they don't
you
have-
really can't plug in the iPhone. That's not
But
allowed.
you could. You'd have to make some modifications to it.
That's what I'm talking
You'd have
about.
to
Where
do
are
that
those
right.
modifications?
But even without some of those modern amenities, I think that's the right word. They're still really good cars.
yes.
Really good cars. So
It's just an
I don't
analogy.
like the analogy. That's what
Okay,
I'm saying.
I
I don't like the
retract
analogy.
my
I think
analogy.
it was better than the pizza one, but I mean,
But I mean, it's just yeah.
Did they, like, Pandemic just had a 10th anniversary edition, right?
I don't think we should be jumping in on that.
Well, I'm just
using that as
making. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just making a point. They just did that. It was an important game. It's brought a lot of people into an aspect of gaming.
Yeah, but this is not
Or
the
gaming
game.
in
This is
general.
Rio Grande. That's just what they do.
That hurts. That's part of it.
I won't argue that. It doesn't help that they also have like 3 different big box versions, which are various combinations, and you can't get them all.
Well, then that hurts. I'm sorry. Dominion is a game, yes. It also has a publisher. It has artwork. Those things matter. That's part of the package.
No,
Some people have been asking if I would play Dominion if it had a Viking theme on it.
the answer is yeah.
No, it's not because seriously, that's one of the things that I don't like about it. It doesn't have a theme. It's just a mechanism. The only theme that's there are the pictures that are on the cards. It doesn't feel like you're in this medieval town doing all of this stuff. It just doesn't.
No, I'm not.
I mean, so sure, slap some Viking pictures on it. It doesn't change the game.
Well, there is that cool
At
Viking
all.
deck builder too.
You will like it more, though.
No, I won't.
You'll be looking at Viking pictures.
Speaking of comments, though, we would like to interact with you all. If someone here has something they'd like to say, and this is specifically about Dominion or deck building in general, go ahead and we'll take a bit of those, and then we'll bring our final thoughts and end this. But it is an interesting game. I think we all would agree it's an important game.
Absolutely.
Right? It definitely had an effect on the industry
I will
better
say
or for worse.
it was an important game.
Yes.
I don't think it is anymore.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's
but
true for a lot of
that's-
older games
I don't
that-
think chess is an important game these days, but I think it was. It's the same thing here. And like deck builders that have gone past and beyond it and changed and did different things. I would say like there's franchises out now. We definitely have the Star Realms, Hero Realms. We definitely have the.
What I'm saying is that if I'm going to recommend a deck builder to somebody, I'm not going to tell them you need to go back and play Dominion. So I don't think it is currently.
What would you
an
recommend
important game.
as a first starter
Depends
deck
on the
builder?
person.
Yeah, well, that's
Depends on
the
the
way it is
person. If
almost
they're a
any
comic
game.
book person, I'll point them to Marvel Legendary. If they are, if they're a fantasy type person, I'd probably point them to Thunderstone or something to that effect. I don't think, in order to get into the deck building genre, or Aeon's End even would be a good. I just played that recently. That would be a good jumping off point. I don't think it's important anymore. There are plenty of deck builders out there that are affordable, if not more so, than Dominion ever was.
Well, I would use it for new people. I would.
I think I might too, actually, because all those games are considerably more complicated.
All right, let's answer some questions. Any thoughts on the evolution of deck builders to bag builders, like Orleans and Altiplano and that wonderful game Master of the Galaxy?
I mean, it's not really a.
It's the same thing.
It is the same thing. And if you built a really, really big board for those games and you did a deck of cards, you could draw the card and put it on the board.
Sure, and
It's the same thing.
I actually like it just because of the tactile feeling of it, I think. And that's fun for me.
Right, but it's a different way to do it. You could do anything. That's not really a new. I think actually I find it kind of weird that it is treated as a new genre, bag building.
It's not really. It's still a deck building. There's one deck builder that came, and everyone said it was amazing, and then it disappeared, and it was from Serling Games. It was the
The one with the chips, Crash, Diamond Crash,
Gem.
Gem / Brash, Boom Bow. Something like that.
I have no
You
idea.
smash gems, you break gems.
Well, anyway, this game came out and everyone said it was much better because it had chips. Remember that?
Correct, yes.
There were chips and you put the chips.
Thank you, Kabuki. Star Realms or Hero Realms is a way better gateway deck builder than Dominion is.
Here's the reason why I like Star Realms and Hero Realms. I like them a lot. But there's two instances I wouldn't want to use them because one, the person may not like space or fantasy. And because there's no theme in Dominion, that's not a problem. No, you just said there was no theme.
But it's got a bunch of fantasy pictures all over it.
Yeah,
that's going to turn them off if they don't like fantasy. It's going to turn them off.
It's medieval more than fantasy.
Puzzle Strike, that's what it's called.
Oh, Puzzle Strike, yes. But the other reason is that it's not in your face, or at least you can take the attack cards out of Dominion.
Agree.
And Star Realms, you are beating up on each other all the time. That's not some people.
I agree with that.
So Puzzle Strike, anyway, Puzzle Strike, this was this new thing, chips, you could throw them in a bag and pull them out.
Yes.
And really the only difference was you could throw a chip in the bag, which was kind of like inserting a card in the middle of your deck. That was really the only tactile difference.
It's like shuffling.
Sure, but right, it's like shuffling, but you could do
a
few things with chips that you couldn't do with cards.
Like what?
I just told you.
Shuffling? You can do that with cards.
Sure, but it's a lot easier to throw a chip in a bag.
It was faster shuffling.
Yeah.
It also had less room for text.
I agree. I'm not saying I'm... And then this game kind of went. Thoughts on promo cards?
They've made a lot of them.
Yeah, I was looking up the Dominion things for expansions, and there's like 20 different promo cards. My favorite is Black Market. Just because I like having a card no one else has, but it's definitely not a
Black Market is one of the few
card.
cards that feels really different in Dominion. That's the thing. Again, the Dominion, there's only a few things you do. You buy cards cheaper, you buy cards slowly over several turns, you give more actions. It's like you can count them on two hands how many different kinds of things you do. And then every card after that is a combination of those things. For more money, for less money, on like I take over your turn kind of cards, those are different.
Sure.
Hate it, but different.
Gile here says, do you think setup time plays a huge role in Dominion still being played compared to other deck builders? I would say yes and no, but I mean, like games that follow the Ascension route are really fast to set up because you're like, here's the deck, here's starting cards, go. Other games can take forever. You mentioned Aeon Zen.
Some games take
That's
longer.
a pretty lengthy setup time.
Yeah.
Really? I've only ever played it the once, and I thought it was just because it was the first time we had played it, and we were basically opening up everything in the box.
Yeah, but that's because Aeon Zen has like one of the best setups ever, where they're like, here's your card, flip this over, now take these cards off. It's really great.
Yeah.
But I mean, once you play it the second time, then you got to go through and sort stuff out.
I assume Thunderstone Quest has a lot of setup in it, right?
Yes, I love the game, but it's a lot of setup. Let's see here. You see any questions? Well, a lot of people will agree with Sam about the theme thing, right? And that it's bland. And I think part of that is on how you are as a gamer. If you don't care about theme, I think you'll like Dominion more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and then all the co-ops came out, after that. There was a wave of cooperative games that came out as well. And that was a new thing. That felt different because you could, help each other out. Again, it created design space in there.
One person said Star Realms is over too quick and you got bored with it. I think you probably need to go back and revisit it with some of the, I think they're called commander decks that give you your own feel. The character decks in Hero Realms did the same thing. Makes you different from everybody else, gives you a starting setup than everybody else does. I'm not saying that it's going to be, it's going to take longer to play, but there's more for you to sink your teeth into. So,
what would you say?
Try out some other stuff.
Someone asked here, what's your most played deck builder?
I would probably have to say Star Realms or Hero Realms, one of the two, or a conglomeration of the two. I've played that one probably more than anything else.
It's probably Dominion for me, actually. But if I count the iPad, it's Ascension.
Yeah, maybe.
If in the last few years, Clank is pretty high up there. I played Clank a lot. I'm including both Clanks, Clank and Space too.
For me, I really have no idea. The ones I still own that I can think of right now, I still own Nightfall. That's a deck building game.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what.
Oh, I forgot about that one. That one came and went.
Vampires and werewolves.
Came and went. It had a
fighting,
cool theme, right? That's the thing. It has a really cool theme.
Yeah.
There was attacking in it, but it was, and it kind of did. It took that thing I liked in Dominion. That again, we saw Chris talk about. It wrecks your deck a little bit when you get hit, as opposed to in Star Realms, it's just a number. Doesn't mess with your deck.
Right.
Like if every time you took a hit or for every 10 hits,
Some of the cards can mess with your deck.
when you take hits, you're given
No,
cards.
not hits. It's just that some of the effects of the other cards will.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out who did that first. That might have been the first game to do it, because Legendary, all those do it. They had wounds and stuff in your deck.
Sure. It might have been Nightfall that did it first. So I like that aspect. I really do. I like my deck being messed with. I'm trying to build something cohesive and strong, and shards of glass keep jumping in there. And then I do like the one with the little one with the animals. What's that called? Merchants of
Vale?
No, that's not it.
Merchants of Dale.
Merchants of Dale, yeah.
Sorry.
That one.
Then, of course, we did see a slight change in the deck building thing. Some people mentioned the game.
Dale of Merchants. That's what it's
Dale
called.
of Merchants, you're
Yes.
right. Some people mentioned Mystic Vale, which just came out. That's what I got, Vale in my head.
Yeah, I know.
Mystic Vale, where you built the cards themselves. That was that's a very different. It's still the same thing when you look at it.
It is a cool. It's a neat concept to make that leap to building the card. Yes, I'll agree there.
Alrighty, well, Curses and Dominions. Never mind. They were the ones that kind of messed your deck up.
Well, no, your own victory points messed your deck up. That's what I meant.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Alrighty,
Yeah.
well, final thoughts from everyone. Z?
I think I agree with you on the idea of Dominion being a strong jumping in point to deck building. If you are truly not, and if you're not a gamer especially, and you're curious about what this is all about, this idea of deck building, I think Dominion is still a solid one to try. Get a copy or borrow a copy of Dominion 2nd Edition. Give it a go. It's a good jumping in point. But I will say, I think there are simply better examples, many of them, of the core idea and mechanism here at play now, as there should be, right? I'm not blaming Dominion for this. It's been 10 years. And it's, in fact, a testament to how good it is that everybody seemed to jump in. That speaks to the fantastic idea that's at its core. But it's been 10 years. Yeah.
I just can't say that Dominion is a good jumping point anymore. You're paying what, $50 for a box?
It's $50. I take everything I said back.
No, it's $40-$50 for a game of Dominion.
Yeah, probably.
You can get Star Realms for less than half of that, and it'll give you the same entry point with less than half of the investment. I would not legitimately be able to recommend that you pay more than twice what you can get and still have the same level of entry into the genre. I just can't do that.
For me, it's that I like the strategy of Dominion, looking at the 10 card sets and trying to figure out the best combo.
Yeah, that's the
I don't
thing.
get that in Star Realms, because you just, whatever cards are there, you work with that.
Correct.
No,
and
because you
Star
also
Realms
do have a definite strategy where you have to either focus in on one faction over the other.
Yeah, but it's
I
always the
get that.
same strategy, though. In Dominion, the 10 cards out there dictate a strategy.
Right.
To a certain degree.
The number
you
of
have
combos in
25
Dominion
of those
is near
cards in the base
infinite.
game. You play with 10 of them.
Yeah,
It would be like taking Star Realms and removing more than half of the deck.
I'm never playing with those 10 starting cards again,
game,
though.
The same strategy every game. I don't understand.
Pick a faction and try to make it work for you.
No, you don't have to pick just one. You can
Or pick two, okay.
I mean, come on.
But in Dominion, there are 25 cards in the base game.
But how is that different than picking from these different 10 cards? And how is that a different strategy?
It's not, but the next setup, there are 10 different cards.
So
Star Realms comes with one deck, not two.
True. But it's an entry point. We're not talking about continuation.
Oh, sure, yeah.
We're talking about you're
I'm
two
saying
different things here.
It's going to give you a better look at what deck building can do, if that's the idea. I think Dominion gives you 25 cards, and you set up 10. You play. You go, okay. I think I get deck building. You set up 10 different cards, especially if you really pick different cards. You're going to play that game and go, okay, This can also be deck building. Got it. Those two are very different games.
I still can't. It's not worth it to me because Dominion is that themeless.
What if it's half off?
It's like having, I don't know. I guess. At this point, it probably would be.
It probably is.
Well, for me, I've had a bit of a, I came at it with a solid 10 for me for many years, and then the expansions I kind of waxed on it a bit, waned on it.
Waxed and waned.
Well, yeah, right. And
Both.
Recently, I've had a pretty big resurgence for it. I don't
Renaissance,
know.
you could even say. They got you, man. They're putting these out named based on you. Next is going to be Dominion Haberdashery.
I would buy that so fast.
You would pre-order
Someone
that.
needs to make a game called Okay, anyway, we're getting off topic. If you're watching this not live and watching it later on, put some comments in. Tell us what you think. Tell people what your favorite deck builders are. Spread the word. Let's talk about it because we can have different opinions if we all like the same thing. Dice Tower would be the most boring show around. Some people are like, well, you're already there.
Truth.
Anyway, thanks to Sam for putting together all the different factoids that you saw over the episode.
Sharks, baby.
We'll see you guys in 2 weeks for another Dice Tower Dive. Come back tomorrow for live board game breakfast and for a top 10 most annoying characters in games. Not people you play with, but in the game.
Yes.
Until then, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia. Thank you.
Sam Healy. See you guys and gals on the flip side.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.